I was a little worried I wasn't going to be on this today. We had a
I
storm.
just asked what the contingency plan was.
Yeah, well, I had a board meeting, but I also had thought my house was going to lift off last night. It was there's some 50-mile-an-hour winds coming through. So I woke up without power, which actually is really nice. No lights, no heat. It was a very sleepy place, but it's back. One big fir tree down in the back. But that's firewood for future. What's it like down in the tropics? Is it a little warmer down there?
It is 84, not a cloud in the sky, and I'm wondering why I'm working inside.
Yeah, 55 minutes. You can do it. We got people rolling in. Lindsay, I think hit the go button on this, so we got people
Yeah,
listening
we're
to us.
live. They're
We're
listening to our
live.
chit chatting. Yeah.
Yeah, keep it clean. Keep it clean. We'll start this thing 2 minutes after the hour. Get everybody transferring over a minute to get on. Um, Looking forward to the discussion, though. Let's break
I
the
am
cycle.
too. Hey,
Feel like people are.
why don't we ask people where they're typing in from in case we got some stories in their home market we can kind of chit chat. So type in the chat, guys, where you're zooming in from.
Zoomy zoom. Let me pull up the chat section of this thing. Got a St.
Wait.
Louis. You get the Q&A section. I always forget the instructions. When we were first doing these fireside chats, I had like an MC. He did all the heavy lifting. I just asked the tough questions, but I've been running the solo show the last couple of years, and occasionally I forget to give the instructions on how to use this thing. But I think it seems like everybody knows how to use Zoom at this point, right? It's not like the new tool on the block. But
Yeah.
use the chat there for dialogue. But if you could use the Q&A tab for your questions, I would greatly appreciate it. But and then I'll build those into the conversation as we go. So we got an Orange County. So you probably got good weather down there, Brett. Um, okay, let's get this ball rolling. So I have the dynamic Lester Morales on today. I probably don't even need me. You just run this thing. Like you're a pro at doing these things. So we're going to be talking about how to break the bundle, break the cycle, and we were kicking around what conversations we would be having on this thing, and I think this one's of the utmost importance. I look back over the last several years, and it felt like coming down the backside of COVID, everyone's feet were stuck in concrete and people weren't moving. And then this last year, last year and a half, I'd say it's just been kind of taken off. And I think there's an opportunity for everybody out there to do what they know is right in terms of unbundling these solutions, taking advantage of opportunity. And Lester, you're going to get into all this today, right? And Lindsay, we probably need to go forward a slide. Is there a bio or something on here?
I've got
Oh,
control, so
look!
I
Oh,
got
you're running it. Lester, look at that
yeah.
picture. I mean, that just says profound right there. Like that's says profound.
I don't even know how that picture got taken. Let's say that. I think I was
Suave,
drinking. Yeah.
suave. I don't know. Looks good. Chiseled. That's another one for you. Just perfect. So, but why don't you talk about? I mean, you got a new name with Disrupt. What's that all about?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think from an intro wise, guys, Lester Morales, and you know what? I think I have like a cool slide that shows some things that I like to intro. Heath, when I always talk about intro for me, it's all about the why, and I think you and I have similar passion for disrupting the model, which is the new name, right? Disrupt. We changed from Next Impact to Disrupt um, for a couple of reasons. It was number one, I get so sick of everybody, especially the what I would call LinkedIn, loud crowd that talks about all of this stuff, and then you go meet with somebody and they're like, "Hey, 99% of my business is with the standard bunch," and so I always kind of take a step back whenever I'm making any decision in this business and think about why do we get up in the morning. And so the why and why it's called disrupt and spelled with a Y and not an I was we as an industry need to stop worrying about how this impacts me and remember the why we get up in the morning and do this. And my why is on this screen. I unfortunately lost both of my parents to cancer. My dad was diagnosed when I was 15 with multiple myeloma. My mom with pancreatic cancer in 2014. And so I lost both my parents before I was 40. And I know all of you are saying I don't even look 40 yet. So thank you. But, the reality of this, Heath, is I spent 15 years at Willis Towers Watson. The first nine as a producer, I grew my own $3.5 million book by the time I was 30. And then nearly 5 years as the chief growth officer for North America. And so I had 200 producers that worked for me. We were a nearly $400 million practice. And it was the best, worst cheerleading job ever. But what you start to realize, and this is no knock on any one institution, if you're not producing something that is outside of the norm, change doesn't happen, right? And we can think about every book that's ever been written about this, right? The tipping point, the challenger sale, like typically the biggest companies in the marketplaces aren't the people that are producing the innovation or the change. And so for me, man, this is a more of a passion than it is a money thing, and I'm excited to have this particular conversation because nothing of any innovation happens until we get out of the current model, and that's just kind of the way I think about it.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. I was gonna just for full disclosure here, I was gonna wear a Santa hat and a ugly Christmas sweater, but my board
Oh man.
meeting ended up getting moved adjacent to this thing, so I'm coming off of up that. So I'm gonna try and liven up a little bit and get in
All
the
right.
flow. Kind of have
Well,
some fun with
you
this thing. So
should have told me. I got plenty of ugly sweaters in there. So, hey, why don't I do this? I want to lay the framework down, and then I want to chit chat with you about what you see and kind of do that. But let me lay down the framework of my thought process, if you don't mind. I'm not taking over your
no,
show,
no, this is you,
but I
baby.
am.
Let's go. All right.
So, I think about this of like, all right, let's think. This is one of the worst renewal seasons anyone's ever seen by all stats. And obviously, there's no end in sight. And in fact, it'll be interesting to see what this individual, the subsidies on the individual side is going to do to healthcare. And a lot of people aren't thinking about it since we all sell, group insurance. But it's a real conversation. So, and think about that. You have a premium decreases on the carrier side, right? If less people enroll in a product, that's less premium there. So that's an overall premium reduction. And then when you start thinking about the hospital side, a lot of the people that were on individual programs were getting subsidies, and so they weren't going into the hospital with no insurance. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the individual subsidies and how that impacts renewals going forward, given the fact that you might have upward pressure on both the supply and the demand side. And so it'll be interesting here. But I always kind of think about this. I'm like, all right, we all build health plans for a living. Some of you call yourself a broker. You might work for a carrier. You might sell stop loss. You might be an RBP vendor, whatever it might be. But we all do the same thing. Now let's think about this. In the normal model today, who's incentivized to actually lower your cost? So I really think about this. I don't know why it took me 15 years of my career to realize that what we call premium, the health insurance company calls revenue. And if you could raise your hand if you lower or wake up in the morning wanting to lower your revenues, then you're smoking something. And so you should stop. So the reality of it is, if we think about the norm and everybody in that food chain, I don't care who it is, the hospitals need to fill more beds. Prescription companies need to sell more pills. Pharmacists need to, do the same thing. Docs need to do more services. The reality of it is, and we got to look at ourselves in the mirror, all of us on this call, especially if you're on the advisor side, and think we get paid more when costs go up. Like maybe some of you are like, oh no, I'm on a fee, but the majority of the industry gets paid a commission, number one. And number two, if it's you're on a fee now, you weren't on a fee 10 years ago. So fees are kind of a newer phenomenon. And so we were part of this mess. And so like I kind of think about like now like who makes the rules? Hey, can you get your hands on this? Can you do this? Can you do that? All of the rules and anything you can do to actually impact costs, the rules are made by somebody else. And that somebody else typically is somebody who wants costs to go up. So we have no alignment. Most people get no data. And I think Heath, the biggest thing that I want to make sure that everybody like switches this conversation is around the impact word. And like, maybe it sounds a little Pollyanna, maybe it's a little altruistic, whatever it is, but like when you see the things that, and you and I had this conversation when you were on my podcast, like when you see the things of like what employers can do when they lower their second largest expense, what they can do when they're waiving deductibles and out of pockets, what they can do when they're saving $2 million and can give people premium holidays or lower their costs. It is just such a big deal. And it's just kind of one of those things that if there's nothing else that you start 2026 with a motivation is like, why are we doing it? Think about the people in all of your clients and prospects that you could impact their lives. So that's kind of the framework. And what I wanted to talk about is the puzzle and how we talk about and sell unbundled plans. But let me shut up and let you ask questions since you're the host of your own thing.
I think you're doing a fantastic job. I mean, I agree with you 100% in terms of how you're laying this out and getting people's minds around what they need to be doing. So let's jump into the puzzle. I think we'll have more questions that come up from here. And audience,
So
by all means, jump in
yeah,
and
yeah,
ask
please
questions as
ask
well.
questions. And I wish people were live because I'd want to ask this question. So it's really interesting. Most employers just know that they have an ID card. It's crazy. I don't care how big the client is. I have a client. Actually, I saw Rhett's on here in his backyard. It's a 10,000 life group, and people who are managing $130 million of a budget. If you ask them, hey, what are the components of your health plan? They got no idea. People have just been used to um, and I think it's an interesting question. I challenge everybody to ask your prospects this and ask them, who do you use for your health care? But you got to frame it in that conversation. Who do you use for your health care? And most people will say Blue Cross or Cigna or Aetna. You don't use them for your health care. You use them for your health insurance or your administration. So I like to show this slide when I talk to prospects and get them to understand the conversation of unbundling isn't changing what they're doing. It's just unpacking it and repackaging it together and then but the same components. And so what they get scared of when you're talking about this TPA and this repricer and this thing is like, I don't even know how my plan works today. So like, are you trying to sell me something? Like, are you trying to sell me a car that doesn't have a muffler on it? Like they don't understand it today. So that starting point of really truly educating them on like, hey, let's take your health plan today. And normally I would show them two versions of this slide. And I would show them you have United here, United here, United here, and United here. And then what I want to put you in, and I would put the TPA, the PBM, the network or the RBP strategy and the advocate, and I would rebundle it back together so that they understand you're essentially building the same exact thing that you're doing today. You're just doing it a different way. And so this is how I start a majority of educational sessions with clients and brokers on, hey, what does unbundling mean? Well, first of all, let's teach you about what you have today. So that piece of it, and then again, I'm not going to go through everything, but then I just teach them like all of this stuff, here of all of the details of, hey, a TPA. What do you use a TPA for today? They do this, this, this. Surprise, the TPA I want you to work with, they're doing those same things too, right? So like they understand when they're used to buying the car this way, when they go to buy the car this way, that it has all the same parts. The biggest piece, and that's where I want to dive into with you, Heath, is kind of the network, right? And so like I like to have the conversation about network. And what do you use a network for? Right? You use them to access Dr. Jones. And unfortunately, it is the way you decide how much you pay for healthcare. And it's really important that people understand that who is deciding how much that MRI costs are two institutions, quite honestly, that don't necessarily want a smaller price for that MRI. They want a bigger price. And so I try to get people to understand it's like, hey, you've got a network today. You use them to access the doc and they tell you how much you're going to pay. Now, how do they tell you how much you're going to pay? And guys, I really advise everybody if you're not having the discount conversation, Heath, I swear to God, I was 15 years in this business before I think I finished the conversation of discount off of what? I used to get paid at Willis to do big client network discount analysis, and we would charge a 10,000 life group a couple $100,000 to tell them that United has a better discount by like 4% at this hospital. And if they moved their employees and did this thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, discount, 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 discount. It never occurred to me to ask the question of discount off of what number and where is that number. So it is such why RBP makes such a good sense. So I'm curious. I'll ask. Maybe I'll interview you on your own show.
Yeah, what do we got?
How do you have this conversation when you're talking to brokers and advisors on like how do they have this conversation of the why this is valuable?
Uh, well, one of the things that we created early on in the beginnings of 6 degrees was the analytic tool of MetaV, and it gives you a really good picture in terms of how arbitrary those build charges are when you're comparing a DRG, which is designed to be the exact same component of care. You can be in the same market. You might even have the same physicians, just a different facility. And you could have one billing at, you know, 10x and the other billing at 4x. And if you are taking a traditional network discount, then that's your starting point and you're getting 50% from that. So, that really tells the tale, and it's eye opening, I think, to executives or to a broker about what they're really paying, and that drives the cost. Where RBP flips that, creates a unified benchmark, typically Medicare, and then look at that, you're coming up at 140% from it. But
So it's funny. You probably don't even know this. I think I use this in 100% of my meetings. And the one conversation I have is like, hey, when you buy a new car, you know what you're buying and you're expecting that the higher the cost, the higher the quality, right? Like a Maserati costs more than a Honda Accord. And this is everything. So I always say, like, hey, this is, and I know what state this is. This happens to be Florida. And I always love having this conversation, and I pull it for every prospect that I'm going to meet with. And it's the conversation of both the quality and the cost of healthcare changes depending on where somebody goes. And number two, if the disparity the discrepancy between facility and facility is all of these green things, and that's the bill charges, but Medicare pays them the blue. Like, look at the damn in the middle. And Florida, I just happen to know, is 900% of Medicare is the average bill charge. So back to discount off of what? If you're billing something at 900% of Medicare and you get a 50% discount, the reality of it is you're still paying 450% of Medicare. And nobody has this conversation. Most of the advisors on this call and the industry doesn't get clients to truly understand if you're really buying that buka for their discount, we have to understand the starting point of that discount. It's unreal how uneducated the average consumer is, and that I'm saying the average consumer, our average buyer, the employer.
No. Yeah, you could tell somebody that, you just say, hey, how big a discount do you want? Tell
Right.
me, as long as I get to set the starting point,
The
it
starting
doesn't.
point. Right.
So,
Right.
one of the things, I don't want to derail from this, but before we get too far away from one of your prior slides, I was thinking, I feel like a lot of times, whether it be the member or even the C-suite that you're talking to in a plan, is they don't oftentimes know the difference between what a network is and who their true insurance is as a self-funded client, right? They see that as one, and you alluded to that early on, but I think that really plays out in terms of whose money is it, right? If you're the C-suite, you have a vested interest in the corporate dollars, but as an employee, that impacts your potential salaries or the benefits that you get. And I think that's essential to understanding this, and that plays out down the road into what RBP can do for you. But just the understanding of why the simple facts of unbundling are so important.
And here's the best part. My largest client was 150,000 lives when I was at Willis. My average size client was over 2,000. So I had some big clients. And I would tell you, I never had this conversation. Like, I look at the advisor that I am now, and how I work with advisors, because that's all I do, and you know that. Like, I just help advisors build this stuff because this is all we do. So we've done, I don't know, 200, 250 implementations of unbundled plans over the last 7 or 8 years. I haven't written a piece of Buka business in 8 years. And it's crazy. I look at that and I'm like, okay, compared to my book of business when I was a broker, I had all Buka business back then. I have no Buka business now. And so you start looking at that, you're like, I would absolutely smoke the broker that worked for the big, ivory tower consulting firm on just the understanding of the mechanics of this. Like, yeah, maybe I can't say I have X amount of premium running through the system, but like in the mechanics of how to purchase your second largest expense, understanding the unbundled approach makes you so much more valuable to having a conversation about that supply chain. It's just unreal. It's unreal. And you said Medavia. You know how many times I love showing and clicking into the hospital that has the big one and looking at their cost to charge ratio? I'm like, this hospital that you guys think is amazing is charging, 1,800% of Medicare, and then relating that to their business. Hey, if something cost you $1 and you're billing it at 1,800% of that dollar, like that's just a crazy number. And it never fails, Heath, of why didn't I ever know this? I mean, that, like, when that quote happens in a meeting, I know I did my job.
You didn't know me back then, last week. You didn't have met me.
Right.
It's
Right.
funny though, when this goes back to 2012 when 6 Degrees got started. It was like the taboo to talk about and show some of these things. There's competitors out there that, like, you can't open up this Pandora's box if people know how it works, and it makes it hard to bill the way we bill. But now it's become more common. Transparency is coming more play. It's not fully there yet, but it's been something that we've been doing for a long time now, and I think it has driven our success and the ability to, um, at least in dispute resolution from a negotiation standpoint, puts us in a really powerful position. So,
Let's maybe dig into like the top down approach versus the right way. And I just absolutely love a slide like this. One, I hate that it's I guess spinal fusion because there's overutilized service. But whatever it is, like this is such a great conversation because this doesn't matter if this is a 25 life group or a 2500 life group. This happens in every market regardless of the size. And so that's the greatest other opportunity that all of the advisors listening to us have in this conversation is a smaller employer of 200 lives has the same opportunity to save as Walmart, right? In this example, it's like, hey, 50% discount off of charges like this versus paying a Medicare plus scenario. It's just arithmetic. And so I don't care if this is Joey's, pawn shop or Walmart, this happens in every single market for every single service there is. And so I think from again a advisor perspective, this is such a great opportunity to empower that employer, which you think about, they've got somebody monitoring how much they spend on telecom or their supplies or putting a budget on their company Christmas party, but then they give their employees a unlimited American Express card called their medical ID and say, go spend money, and you don't even know what the hell you're spending the money on. Like how we purchase and go about health care and health insurance is just asinine.
yeah.
Just
I think
asinine.
you can make an argument that this is even more important for a small plan. I mean, the aggregate numbers aren't like a Walmart, but to the individual, to the budget of a small employer, this has a significant impact.
The other thing that, I kind of wanted to like proof is in the pudding, and I've got some of your case studies too, so I want to dig into this. But like this is probably my poster child client. I picked this client up, 2020, moved them to an unbundled plan. They were self-funded with a Buka. And the blue line is actual, and the orange line is if they trended at 5%, just 5%. So this company is spending $1 million less. No, more than that. Yeah, about $1 million less now, 5 years later. And their plan, call into the advocate, go where they say it's free. And the coolest part about this client is they are an ESOP. And so I remember, and this is one thing I want to dig into with you, Heath, because it drives me bonkers, and I'm sure you see it way more when brokers avoid this conversation about what RBP really is, and you can't sell it like it is a normal PPO plan. It works different, and people need to understand why it works different. And so this CEO um, gets on in front of all of his employees. So they got about 350 employees or so. And it gets in front of his employees and says, it's an ESOP, remember, says, anybody in this room want to get paid less? Nobody raises their hand. It says, our second largest expense is healthcare. This guy's going to teach you how I could put more money in your ESOP. If you have any questions after he gets off stage, you let me know. And he walks off stage. And so we just went through like the realities of it and like talked to the employees like they were real people. Like they buy shit every day and have to make purchasing decisions as individual people. And now we get people calling in and being like, "Yeah, I need the free insurance. Like I'll go anywhere." And so you have these people that are like, they will, and now they trust. And I know what their 2026 renewal is because they're still my client, and it's a negative two decrease. So my trend line is going to extend one more year and get wider on this. But this is real dollars for real people, and this is as blue collar gets. And so I'd be curious, Heath, the best advisors versus the ones that you want to kick in the fanny. How do they approach this conversation different than each other, right? The good versus the bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you take an analysis of RVP versus current, assuming they're not RVP, you're going to get the attention of any CFO. It's going to look good, anywhere from a 20 to 40% savings. But the things that we notice from the 6 degrees side is when a client has not been properly educated and or consulted in terms of what this transition is. And we do everything we can to be as close to that plan as we can, because we found that increases in success and retention of these groups. But occasionally you'll have a consultant that is sold at last minute or shielded us from the process, and you'll pretty quickly figure out it was sold as just a cheaper PPO network type program. Uh, and unfortunately, that if you don't set expectations right, you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, I think you can make the argument, if sold correctly, you will get the buy-in and set expectations correctly. Will overachieve those expectations. But you have to help people see, especially in that first year of RVP is probably the year of the most disruption. It's a change, whether you're changing PPO products or going to RVP. The change is sometimes difficult for folks, but helping people attach the struggle that they may have to the benefit that they're getting, more money in their bank accounts, more members on the plan for the family, better access, whatever it may be. You help everybody get in a line and they'll work together to achieve that. And then these things run a lot smoother after that first 6 months. Now, we've created solutions within our product that I think really help, uh, you know, accelerate getting to that point. Call ahead programs, onboarding programs that start well ahead of a plan going live, contracting initiatives, single case arrangements. All these things are designed to make this work. And then the technology that we keep building into the system, I think, is also helping members, especially as people become timid of actually picking up a phone rather than typing into a phone. We've made those things all app based if you choose to use that. So I think those things have all helped. And we're seeing, better retention rates, lower balance bill rates, lower access issues. All these things are improving. But still, without proper expectation setting, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
This boils down as somebody who has led large sales teams before. This all has to do, and your title is Chief Growth Officer, so you'll appreciate this. This is all a pipeline conversation, right? Like if you're out there talking about something, let's just say RBP as the solution. The reality of trying to sell it to the one person creates such friction and pressure on that one person. But if you have enough pipeline, and so if you've got enough people that you're like, hey, by the way, I got this solution, it's going to save you 25 to 40%. However, it's not going to have the same logo on your card, and your people might get a balanced bill every once in a while. But if they do this, this, and this, we'll take care of it and everything will go. So it is stepping away from the normal crap, but this is what the book of business performs at. Out of 100 hands, if you would have asked them before you started talking, who's unhappy with how much they pay for healthcare, all of them raise their hand, right? And if you get done with the spiel and then you ask them the same question, hey, everybody in this room is unhappy with how much you pay for healthcare. I just showed you how I can help you. Who wants to have further conversations? The sad part is only like 25% of the people will raise their hand. But what I love about it, those 25% of the people just heard the shitty stuff and still raises their hand at the end of it and says, "Tell me more." So as advisors, we're doing this, and I'm sure you guys do this for education and lead generation, right? But like that's the reality of this. Like if I am every broker on here, I literally would have roundtables in my office or webinars every single week if I could. Tell people the right story and then ask them at the end of it, anybody want to talk more? The good news is you get way better at the spiel. People feel less threatened because it's not a sale, it's an education. And the people that raise their hand actually want to talk to you. So, like, the conversation about like trying to sell it like it is a PPO is because A, people are scared to have tough conversations, and B, they're just needing a sale. So there's that much pressure on making that sale. And so you're cutting corners, and it's going to come back and bite you in the keister every single time.
Yeah. And if you build that pipe up big enough, those that maybe didn't raise their hand this year, they may be raising their hand next year after they've chewed on it for a while and recognize,
My
yeah,
close
we
percentage
just
in
got
year
hosed
two
again.
doubles.
Yeah.
Yeah, my close percentage in year two doubles. Absolutely doubles. Because when you lose, right, when they're like, I'm rather going to pay more and stay with Cigna. You're like, fantastic. If you have any questions over the course of the year, and then when you get another double digit rate increase next year, let me know. Right? Like, and what happens? They get another double digit rate increase, and they're like, hey, by the way, that loud guy, obnoxious guy that told us about that cool plan last year, we should call him back. Right? So like it just makes sense. Heath, I would love because I don't think people really truly believe that the numbers are what they are. But let's talk about across your book of business, and
Mhm.
just like in general, the industry. Like, I really think people, and there's brokerage firms out there, guys. And if you're at one of those brokerage firms and you're mad at me, I'm sorry. And if you're not at one of those brokerage firms, you should figure out which brokerage firms they are. Call me and I'll tell you. That literally make their clients sign like a affidavit saying, "Hey, you're going into RBP, or you're using international sourcing, or you're doing something that is like not one of the bukas. Sign here and make sure you're holding us harmless." Like, I would love to compete with them every single day. You're essentially telling me the things that's actually driving my costs down. You want me to tell you that I'm not going to hold you harmless if I get a couple noise. But what happens all day long when somebody gets an anesthesiologist that's out of network and they get a balance bill from United? It happens all the time. So I don't think people truly believe what the actual real numbers are. So I don't know if it's this slide or this slide, or I got a couple of your slides
You got
that
a couple. You can go. I
yeah.
mean, so the core product was that earlier slide. That's our ultimate RVP. The vast majority of our programs run on this, which is a combination of facility and physician RVP. There's a physician network built into that, but that runs at around 136% of Medicare. So to take that versus your traditional network models, you're probably at 225 plus, somewhere in there. And so that's where your savings are coming from. And this is coming with, around a 1% balance bill rate. You've got, access issues. I would say it's probably the big front of RBP today is, making sure members are getting in the door. But we have tools and people on staff that are making those phone calls for you, to get you there. And there's probably a 3% disruption rate on access, but we'll get the care for you. And I think the biggest thing, I don't know if you got this stat, but I think we have around a 98% retention rate for our plans that are running Ultimate RVP, which is phenomenal. Think about what the turnover rate is in a general self-funded environment and a network. So once these groups find the savings of reference-based pricing and you're doing it right and you're
They ain't going
supporting
back.
them, you're
Yeah.
building the plan around them, which is what 6 Degrees is designed to do, which is customize the solution for the risk tolerance of the plan. They're going to stick there. So as an advisor, you're positioning yourself for success and retention as well. So,
So I'd be curious. You and I have done a lot of talking. There are several people on this call. Anybody have any questions? I mean, Heath and I could talk forever. But any questions? I'm curious, like, how many people on this call have, half of their book of business unbundled or what? Like I'm curious where the questions are. And it doesn't need
Yeah.
to be about 6 degrees specifically or RBP specifically. Let's chat. I mean, I what I love about all of these innovative strategies is the rising tide lifts all the boats. Right? This is really a like we just need to get more employers understanding that there is something outside of the normal, four logos that they're used to seeing. And then if more employers do that, then every service provider underneath it wins because I mean, we're all competing against the same thing, which is the status quo. So like I don't view anybody that's, on these calls, you're rarely losing to another RBP provider. You're losing because the client just stays freaking with Cigna, right? So it's crazy. But any questions? I don't see the Q&A. I can only see the chat. But any questions anybody has?
Not seeing any in the Q&A yet, so feel free to drop some in there. I will provide this. I've been in the business going on, I think, 22 years now. And so I know a lot of my peers that competing companies and, bump into them from time to time. But it seems like for most of the higher service leveled RBP companies out there that it's been a pretty good year for everybody. I think as you mentioned, that rising tide raises all. I think the market conditions are right for people to be taking this step. They cannot endure another rate increase. I think all the products. I know our products phenomenal right now. Our service teams are just kicking hiney, and the technology is good as well. But I think some of the other high service models are doing a good job. Fee schedules might be different, but they're seeing growth just like we are. And I think it's
This
an
was a great
opportunity
question
for,
that came into the chat, Heath,
yeah,
and I've got my own answer to it, but I'll let you take the first dab on it. Can you speak about RBP in the great state of California,
California.
running
Yeah.
into
So,
a lot of non-friendly providers?
yeah. Um, so I always advise folks not to look at things from a state level, unless maybe you're in Maryland, but that
Right.
may be changing as well. Um, but don't look at it from a state level. Look at the area that they're in. Look at the providers that they're accessing. And we can run an analysis based on the data you have. We can run a disruption report. We can run a savings analysis. If you don't have anything, you just give us geo access. We can give you some estimates there as well. But there are some difficult providers in California. One of the things that we offer is the flexibility to contract. And that contracting doesn't always have to be as aggressive as traditional RBP, right? That's an option we provide. So that is where we just have to weigh the cost benefit of making a move and utilizing. Sometimes contracts be just as good as RBP, not typically at 140% of Medicare, but maybe you're at 160. You could also have the occurrence of it's at 225. So ask yourself, where was that plan on a BUCA program? And what's happening with all the claims that go outside of that contract at 225? You're probably still getting RBP rates. So that's the discussion to have with that group, is what is the best path forward. And we do offer that ability. Now, there are times where we may advise that that is not the best path forward, because of whatever situations are going on. And the thing I always tell people to push pause on is a single balance bill, where they're like, oh, we've got to get a contract. It's like, well, okay, we've had 1,000 claims go through here. We've had 3 balance bills. You want to give up 140% Medicare for 3 claims? I mean, that's ridiculous. Like we have a solution to resolve those balance bills through negotiation. We use that Medivie data. We also have a legal program that is life of claim and co-fiduciaries on. So there's a lot of protections in place. But I think when you go full circle back to your question, I think Janie, is making sure people are getting in the doors, and we can do single case arrangements in lieu of a global contract, which oftentimes I would say is probably a better move, because you're not giving up discounts, RBP discounts on all care just on a single occurrence. So
The other thing too, depending on where you are in California, right? I've done things where it's dual option. Right? So give the employees a choice. Hey, this plan's going to be cheaper. Typically, if you're running a dual option, let's just say, a national PPO versus an RBP, I'm always asking stop loss to give me spec and ag factors and rates per plan so that I can set rates accordingly. So, hey, you want that logo? You want to make it easier? Um, you're going to pay 30% more out of your paycheck. So now the employees get to see it. But Heath, the other thing that I like about y'all's program is we also don't have to sit at one specific percentage of Medicare. So, like when people throw out the baby with the bathwater, so, oh, RBP doesn't work. Time out. Let's define what it is. Because what if the RBP percentage was 1,000%? Would that hospital like it then? So typically, hospitals don't like the method or the percentage, right? Or both. So some of the early models were all dealing with the sins of the past because it was like, hey, we're going to pay you 110% of Medicare. And if you don't like it, pound sand. We'll see you in court.
yeah.
Right. And so we're all kind of dealing with that, RBP turned into a four-letter word. But the reality of it is, like, RBP, let's first define it. All we're trying to do is get to what are we paying for the service that was just provided, period, the end. And if we got to overpay for a couple or overpay for whatever, so I get a lot of stop loss conversations, which I love having. It's like, hey, this is the method that we're going to take. Can we get a handful? So sometimes I get stop loss markets to give me a budget. Can we get a budget of $100,000 extra to make some of these go away? And so, to your point, just because you got one balance bill, it might have been that one that person who like saw it like got cranky, but the other 972 of them went away. So fine, pay that one at 250% of Medicare versus 140. And sometimes when you look at the numbers, you're like, what are we freaking even arguing about? It's like $18,000. You're like, okay, I just saved 650,000 over here. I'll give back 18,000. And so, like, the more if there's anything I could really advise to the audience is like be a master at your craft, because the better you could have the conversation, the better you could manage expectations, but the better you could also have conversations about how to set it up in the first place with stop loss with your clients, having the conversation with the direct contracting conversation. There's just a lot you can do.
Well, speaking of stop loss, what do you see? A well-run RVP plan, priced appropriately versus a network model. I mean, you're in an advantage there, right?
20 on the ag, you're getting north of 20. Normally on the spec too, but it depending on how the size of the group is. But I would say 18 to 25 is pretty norm. And then
So
again,
it's
you
not.
have the opportunity to have the contribution strategy. So I like using the dual option just to get the sale. And that sounds a little salesy, but like, hey, employer, if somebody doesn't want to do this new thing, let them do this. But just like I have to pay more to get a Honda, to get a Maserati than a Honda Accord, like this one just cost more. And that's why the spec and the ag factors put in their face. I didn't decide this. The person who's covering your insurance decided this, the stop loss market. It's literally black and white. So it just justifies and supports your story.
Yeah, and you can do dual options with pretty much everybody now. It will determine which TPAs you're going to use, but
Sure.
lots of different network options for dual option today.
Yeah, yeah. Janie, thanks for being brave and asking that question. So appreciate it. I'm looking at some of the states that what about
Oh,
captive?
there you go, Anatoly.
Um, I'll start because I have a strong opinion on this. Just how do I say this? Because I'll piss some people off. I love captives, but I love captives after you've done other things. I think what if we understand what a captive is a risk transfer mechanism, right? It's reinsurance. And what drives me bonkers is that the industry has thrown it into like a global solution. Just go with the captive. And it's like, well, wait a second. If inside of the captive is all the same people that's doing all the same shit that's driving up costs, then why do I want to get in a captive with a bunch of other people? So I always use the peeing in the pool example. Like if I'm jumping into a public pool and I don't know who else is peeing in the pool, I don't like being in that pool. So for me, I always say, the captive is the last thing you think about. Go buy the claims more inexpensively. So start with the RX conversation, go to the RBP conversation. Once you've squeezed the claim, now the captive comes into the conversation because now you're getting back some of the premium dollars that you're paying for reinsurance. But when you look at it, a well-run self-funded plan, depending on the size, the fixed cost of reinsurance is 6 to 15 points. So, like, for it to be your end all be all. So, for me, who else is peeing in my pool? I always want to know who else is in my pool and what are they doing. So, the captives that require the risk management strategies, those are captives I like playing with. But the captives that just let, it's community college, everybody gets in. I don't know that you're doing anything different, but buy the claim less expensively first. Soapbox done.
There you go. And there's captives that will just do RBP. That's something to think about is get in the pool with your friends they're
Okay.
doing similar cost containment solution.
Yeah, they're drinking lots of water. The pool, the pee ain't that bad, right?
just keep
Uh, they
just
they
keep
got
thinking of
they got
pee and
vodka.
pool.
They got vodka in there. So it's a bit. Look, I always think that captives is a 2 or 3 second or third year kind of conversations. Like, for me on the unbundling conversation, the RX goes first always. And then how are we buying our medical claims? And then we're talking about how are we risk transferring it. On top of all of it, and Heath, I'd be curious to see, I'm sure you guys work with several utilization management, medical management, advocacy, whatever we want to call it, like people that help people navigate the healthcare system. Do you
Mhm.
find that those plans run better, worse, up, down, left, right? I'd be curious what your thought is.
I think if they're reputable in engaging with our technology from a friendly provider standpoint, I would say they do run better. You know, and I think if you have a member population that trusts that entity, they become a point of contact that people will reach out to. I think that also helps. Now, if it's just sold and not properly educated out to the population, then I don't know if it's doing a heck of a lot. But plan docs and education go a long ways in terms of utilization. So,
Yeah, I would tell you it for me. I have seen the difference in getting clients more comfortable with taking on some of these strategies because there is a way to just offload all of the conversation with somebody. So, most of our plans are going to have an advocate, and it is going to be call to the advocate, go where they say, and it's free. And so back to, the connectivity, people have with you, like if they know that that hospital is RBP friendly and that hospital is not RBP friendly, and we can now incentivize the person, assuming it's not the cockroach motel, type of hospital, to go to
mhm.
this hospital, then not only did we give a better plan for the member themselves, we just bought the claim more or less expensively, and that's probably poor English, but and we didn't have to worry about the balance bill. So across your entire book, there's already a small balance bill percentage. Now, if we knew, because we can guide people to the right spot, that we're going to squeeze that small percentage even more, hot diggity dog.
Heck yeah, baby. Heck yeah. Well, we're down to 5 minutes. What do we have? Any other questions last minute? Otherwise, we can. I saw you
Well,
had a high surf advisory on your weather report at the bottom. You going surfing this afternoon or?
no, buddy, that's what happens when you live in a on an island. So, I'm gonna leave everybody with this, and this is my favorite close a meeting with. I can't tell you, and let's back up. Heath, the OGs of the industry, right? Like the people that have been doing this innovative stuff, right? We're talking maybe 10 years old, maybe a little bit longer, but for the most part, like when you guys started 6 Degrees, you probably had people looking at you like you had 19 heads. Like when I started Next Impact, 8 years ago, the first, first group I sold that's still on the books, on doing RBP, running like a freaking champ. Like I remember like selling that thing and the clients like, what kind of voodoo math is this? And so I think over and over again over the years, right, the adoption rate has increased. But I really look at this as an advisor, as a plan partner. I mean, I see some people, my boy Jose's on. I mean, people from good TPAs, from good brokerage firms. Like, I think everybody on this phone has a common thread. They give a shit. And like I literally am fueled with give a shit. And I often will end every meeting with this of like, you might have not known what we are talking about before you walked in, but now you do. And so as we're, ending the year and gonna eat a bunch of food and drink a lot of drink and have some family time, like look around your family because, when you see the stats of 67% of personal bankruptcies happen because of medical expenses, 40% of people are delaying healthcare because they can't afford it. The average household doesn't have $400 in the bank to pay for an unexpected healthcare cost. And like we're opening presents that people probably put on a freaking credit card. Like we have gotten so warped to forget that the average person that's out there doing the jobs that we all need to happen as society, those people can't afford to use their healthcare. So like I look at this as like you might have not have known this stuff before. And so, knowledge is power. And so now that you have the knowledge, you've got the responsibility to go talk about it. It's not the right thing for every client, but it's absolutely the wrong thing for those people to not have the conversation. And so I just firmly believe that. And there's my pretty picture again with contact information. If anybody has any questions, like I love having these conversations. My whole business is built on helping brokers do this stuff. And an even better looking guy. If you have any questions for Heath,
Notice
he
my.
didn't put his.
I gotta get a
That's
new.
a
I need a new
yeah.
picture. I think
There's some more gray in
forehead's
your
bigger,
beard, buddy. There's some more
more
gray in your beard.
gray, little
Yeah.
more chub, and a little less hair. But yeah, one thing I would add, and I'll get this thing wrapped up. But the other thing is, if you're not talking to your clients about it, somebody else may be. You got that potential
Not
risk as well.
maybe.
So
Absolutely is.
get educated on it. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. I know Lester is as well. So take advantage of the resources that are available and be the person with the power. All right, Lester, thank you. Tons of
Thank
energy. I
you.
love it. I love it. I love it. I think we got it. Is there one slide, a wrap up slide? I think we got
I
a
don't know.
parting uh, fireside
Oh,
slide. But if you don't
yeah.
have it, that's fine. I think the only
February.
thing February. All
February.
right.
You're taking
So
January off.
you guys get a month off of this fireside chat. January is a no chat month. We'll be back in February. I don't know the date, but probably in the middle of the month on a Wednesday or Tuesday based on historical trends. But everybody, Merry Christmas. happy
Yeah.
holidays. Spend some time relaxing. I know it's always a grind for us in this business to get through Q4. So enjoy yourself for a week or day or whatever you're going to take. But otherwise, I'll see you all in February. Lester, thank you
Thanks,
much.
Heath. Thank you,
Yeah.
buddy. See ya. Merry Christmas.